She missed Christmas with her family to help a Japanese billionaire and heard something in Japanese. This is the story of a young woman who gave up the most anticipated moment of the last 5 years just to help a stranger lying in the rain. And it was precisely when she heard a single word in Japanese that she realized that night would not be ordinary. Have you ever wondered how far you would go to help someone, even knowing it might cost you something precious? Sometimes destiny places a quick choice right in front of us, and it is that choice that reveals who we truly are. On a rainy night in Seattle, Claire, 23 years old, a waitress and medical student, racing against time to reach the airport and finally spend Christmas with her family in Spain, saw her plans collapse in seconds. When she arrived at the bus stop, under a cold, heavy rain, Claire saw a Japanese woman lying on the ground, injured, trying to get up but unable to. People hurried past, looking away. The clock was ticking. The bus was approaching. Her flight was waiting. Even so, Claire stopped. She knelt beside the woman, helped her sit up, and tried to calm her. Then, with a weak voice filled with emotion, the woman held Claire's hand and whispered in Japanese, "Arigato," which means thank you. A single word, simple, but one that echoed deeply in Claire's heart. She still didn't know the full meaning of that moment. She didn't know who that woman really was, much less that the word came from someone who was not just a vulnerable elderly woman, but a powerful Japanese billionaire known for living far from the spotlight. By helping that stranger, Claire would miss her flight. She would miss Christmas with her family, but she would gain something she could never have imagined. And this is exactly where the turning point begins. What did that word in Japanese truly mean? Why did that thank you carry a hidden promise? And how could such a simple gesture change the destiny of 2 women forever? Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you with all my heart to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this story will move you and make you deeply reflect on the power of kindness. Sometimes, when we give up what we love most, life gives us something even greater in return. Now, tell me, would you have done the same as Claire? Write in the comments. I'd love to reply to you. The rain was pouring heavily that night in Seattle, as if the sky had decided to release everything at once. People crowded under the bus stop, shielding themselves as best they could, each one concerned only with reaching their own destination. The clock ticked mercilessly, counting every minute. Then something interrupted everyone's rush. A Japanese woman, about 65 years old, staggered beside the bus stop. She tried to steady herself on the metal bench, but her legs gave out. Within seconds, she fell, striking her knee on the wet ground. Her breathing became short and irregular. Her hand trembled as she tried to reach the bag that had fallen beside her. Some people looked. No one stopped. Claire, running toward the stop with her backpack on and her heart racing because of her flight, slowed when she saw the scene. The bus hadn't arrived yet. Even so, she felt that familiar tightening in her chest, the same feeling she always had when someone needed help. She knelt beside the woman. The woman was pale, sweating cold, visibly confused. In broken English, she managed to explain that she had lost her medication earlier that afternoon. Claire quickly recognized the signs: dizziness, weakness, irregular breathing. "What medication do you take?" Claire asked, trying to stay calm. With difficulty, the woman explained that she took daily medication to control blood pressure and a cardiac arrhythmia. Without it, her body began to react badly, It wasn't a severe collapse yet, but the delay could quickly make things worse. Claire didn't hesitate. Carefully, she helped the woman to her feet. She lifted her onto her back, ignoring the rain, the weight, and the hurried looks of people around them. Struggling, she walked until she managed to flag down an emergency transport passing nearby. The entire way to the hospital, she spoke to the woman, trying to keep her conscious. In the emergency room, the medical team acted quickly. Blood pressure checked, electrocardiogram done, medication administered. Minutes after receiving the correct medicine, her breathing steadied. Color returned to her face. The danger had passed. The diagnosis was clear, only a delay in medication with no major damage. After observation, she was discharged. In the quiet hospital corridor, the woman held Claire's hands tightly. Her eyes filled with tears. "Arigato," said the Japanese woman, her voice still weak. Then she placed a hand over her chest and added in English, "Thank you." Claire smiled, relieved. The woman then introduced herself. She said her name, spoke it in English, and repeated it in Japanese, explaining that in her culture, helping someone creates a bond that does not break, and that true gratitude requires recognition and respect. She explained who she was. She spoke about her life, her businesses, and how she often walked without security to observe the world as it truly is. An extremely wealthy woman, a Japanese billionaire who that night had found herself completely vulnerable. "What you did for me," she said, looking directly at Claire, "will not be forgotten." Claire took a deep breath. Her phone vibrated non-stop in her pocket. The flight had been missed. Christmas with her family, too. But at that moment, she still didn't know that this choice, made in the rain without thinking, was about to change her life forever. The hospital had grown quieter by the time Claire stepped out of the room beside the Japanese woman. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the clock on the wall showed a time she preferred not to stare at for too long. Her phone was still buzzing with notifications from the airport, alerting her that boarding had closed. She knew it. The flight had already departed. Even so, Claire showed no regret. She felt tired, cold, and a sharp pinch of sadness, but something inside her told her she had done the right thing. When she returned to the room, the woman was sitting up, more composed now, holding a cup of water in her hands. "You lost something important because of me," the woman said, her gaze attentive. Claire smiled softly. "Christmas can be rescheduled," she replied. "Life can't." The woman fell silent for a few seconds. Then she gently bowed her head, a traditional Japanese gesture of deep respect. She explained that in her culture, acts of kindness create a moral debt, not of money, but of honor. Claire listened attentively, but she didn't seem impressed. "I didn't help expecting anything," she said simply. "I just did what anyone should do." The woman observed Claire with even greater interest. They talked for a few more minutes. The woman explained that she had lost her bag with her medication after leaving a nearby hotel, that she was in the United States on business, and that she often walked alone so she wouldn't be recognized. Claire shared a little about herself, that she worked as a waitress, was studying to become a doctor, and had just missed her flight to Spain. "5 years without seeing my family at Christmas," she said, without drama, just stating a fact. The woman took a deep breath. Her eyes filled with emotion. "You sacrificed something very precious," she said in English, her voice steady. Then she repeated it in Japanese. "Kokoro kara, arigato." "Thank you from the bottom of my heart." Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. Even so, she refused any financial help when the woman mentioned compensation. "Really, there's no need," she said. "I'm just happy knowing you're okay." Before they parted, the woman asked for only one thing: Claire's full name. She wrote it down carefully, as if safeguarding something important. She said their paths would cross again, one way or another. Claire smiled politely, not taking it too seriously. When she left the hospital, the rain had eased. The cold remained sharp, and the city felt emptier. Claire walked toward the bus stop with slow steps, finally feeling the weight of exhaustion settle in. She no longer had a flight. She no longer had Christmas with her family. But she had the strange feeling that the night wasn't over yet. Because sometimes the good we do in silence echoes when we least expect it. The next day dawned gray in Seattle, as if the city itself reflected the exhaustion Claire felt inside. She had barely slept. Her body ached, her mind felt heavy, and her heart empty. At that hour, she should have been on a plane, crossing the ocean toward Spain. Instead, she rushed to get ready for another shift at the restaurant. When she arrived at work, the atmosphere was different. Some coworkers whispered, others cast curious glances her way. It didn't take long for someone to mockingly comment that Claire had made up a story to justify her absence the day before. The manager, a man impatient and used to thinking only in numbers, pulled her aside. "You missed one of the busiest days of the year," he said, crossing his arms. "Do you know what that means?" Claire tried to explain. She told him about the woman who had fallen, the hospital, the missed flight. She spoke calmly, without exaggeration, but the more she spoke, the more the manager's expression hardened. "You expect me to believe you missed Christmas because of a stranger?" he scoffed. "That's not professional." Some coworkers laughed. Others shook their heads as if she had been naive. One waitress commented that kindness doesn't pay the bills. Another said Claire was always trying to be too nice. Claire felt her face burn. She didn't respond. She didn't defend herself. She simply took a deep breath and went back to work. She served tables, took orders, wiped down counters. Every smile felt heavier than the last. Every comment cut like a thin blade. Deep down, something hurt more than the humiliation. It was the feeling that in this world, doing good seemed to be a mistake. During her break, Claire sat alone near the service area. She picked up her phone and saw photos of her family in Spain. The dinner table, the lights, the hugs she didn't have. For the first time since the night before, tears fell. "Maybe I was foolish," she whispered to herself. The manager appeared shortly afterward. "If you miss work again or put strangers above this job, don't bother coming back," he said coldly. Claire nodded in silence. She finished her shift exhausted, her feet aching and her heart even heavier. She walked through the cold city streets, wondering whether the world truly rewarded those who did the right thing. At that moment, she didn't know it yet, but someone, somewhere, had not forgotten her gesture. And while Claire faced contempt and injustice, the seed of kindness, planted in the rain, was beginning to take root. Christmas passed without Claire fully realizing how. The lights on Seattle's streets were still shining. Store windows still played cheerful songs, but none of it seemed to reach her. For her, the days that followed became a silent routine of waking up, going to work, and trying not to think about what she had lost. On the morning of December 26th, her phone buzzed early. It was a video call from her mother, calling from Spain. Claire hesitated before answering. When her mother's face appeared on the screen with a tired smile and tearful eyes, Claire's heart tightened. "We missed you so much," her mother said, trying to sound strong. Claire replied with a smile she couldn't hold for long. She saw her father in the background, her uncles, her cousins, a full house. the place that had always been her safe harbor. When the call ended, the silence returned even heavier. She got ready for work feeling weighed down, as if every step required more effort than usual. On the way, she wondered if she had really made the right choice. For the first time, doubt truly settled. At the restaurant, the atmosphere was tense. The manager seemed even more impatient than usual. Every small detail became a reason for reprimand. One customer complained about the waiting time and he blamed Claire. Another asked for a dish to be replaced, and once again she was called careless. During her break, Claire tried once more to explain what had happened that rainy night. She talked about the hospital, the Japanese woman, the delayed medication, but the manager didn't want to listen. "This isn't a social shelter," he said coldly. "If you keep putting strangers above your job, you don't belong here." The words hurt more than a shout. Shortly after, he called her into the back room. "You're dismissed," he announced, without emotion. "You can collect your things." Claire stood in silence for a few seconds, trying to understand. The apron slipped from her hands as she took it off. No coworker said a word. Some lowered their heads, others simply watched. When she stepped outside, the cold air hit her face sharply. Claire walked aimlessly for a few blocks, feeling the weight of everything crash down at once. She had lost Christmas, she had lost her job, and now she didn't know how she would pay next month's bills. She sat on a bench in the park, her hands trembling. She looked up at the cloudy sky and let the tears fall freely. "Maybe I was too naive," she thought. "Maybe being good isn't worth it." Then the image of the Japanese woman came to her mind, the grateful look, the word spoken with such meaning, arigato. Claire took a deep breath. Even in pain, she knew if she were faced with the same choice again, she would do everything the same way. And that, without her realizing it, said a lot about who she was and about the reward that was still to come. 2 days after being fired, Claire's apartment felt painfully silent. Her study books lay open on the table, but her mind couldn't focus. Every thought circled the same question: what now? That morning, someone knocked on the door. Claire was surprised. Behind him, a black car was parked on the street. "Claire Donovan?" he asked politely. She nodded, wary. "I'm here on behalf of Miss Aiko Tanaka." The name sounded distant for a second, until everything clicked. The hospital, the rain, the Japanese woman. The man explained that Aiko wished to see her in person and apologized for appearing without notice. Claire hesitated, but something in his respectful tone made her agree. Minutes later, the car moved silently through the streets of Seattle. When they arrived at an imposing building, Claire felt her heart race. This place was nothing like the simple life she lived. Aiko was waiting in a spacious room filled with natural light. She looked elegant and serene, completely different from the fragile woman who had been lying in the rain days earlier. When she saw Claire, she stood up and bowed gently. "Arigato gozaimasu, Claire-san," she said in Japanese. Then she repeated in English, "Thank you for saving my life." Claire was left speechless. Aiko then explained who she truly was, the founder of one of Japan's largest pharmaceutical groups with international investments, including in the United States. She explained that the medication she had lost was essential to control a cardiac arrhythmia associated with high blood pressure, and that the delay could have been fatal if no one had stopped to help her. "Many people passed by me," she said calmly. "You were the only one who stayed." Claire tried to downplay it. "I just did what needed to be done." Aiko smiled. "In my culture, that is not just. That is character." She explained that she had quietly looked into Claire's life. She learned about her studies, her dream of becoming a doctor, her job as a waitress, and the unjust dismissal. "You lost a great deal that night," she said calmly, "and you asked for nothing in return." The room fell silent. "I want to repay you, not out of obligation, but out of honor." Claire's eyes filled with tears. Then Aiko made the proposal that would change everything. But that was only the first surprise. Claire was in disbelief. What Aiko Tanaka had just proposed was something she had never imagined. The woman sitting across from her, with an impressive calm, had just revealed that she wanted to help Claire achieve her greatest dream, becoming a doctor. "I will finance your education," Aiko said, her voice firm and serene. "You will be accepted into Harvard Medical School, and I will cover all your expenses. In addition, I will secure internships and connections at renowned hospitals so you can receive the best possible training." Claire was speechless. She tried to process what she had just heard, but the words didn't seem real. "But," she stammered, trying to understand, "I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever imagined. I can't accept something like this for free." Aiko interrupted her with a gentle smile. "It's not for free, Claire. It's recognition. Recognition for your kindness and courage. Many people look the other way. You looked at me and helped me, expecting nothing. I am simply giving back." Claire swallowed hard, feeling a mix of gratitude and disbelief. The weight of everything she had lost, the flight, Christmas with her family, her job, began to lift, and a new sense of hope started to rise. Aiko continued, explaining that she believed in Claire's potential not only as a student, but as someone with the power to change lives. "You don't know this, but my own story is also marked by sacrifice," Aiko said, her eyes now softer. "When I came to the United States to study, I also faced hardships. I had no money, no support, but I found people who believed in me and helped me become who I am today. Now it is my turn to do the same." Claire felt a tight knot in her throat. She didn't know whether to cry, smile, or simply remain silent, absorbing the weight of the generosity she had just received. What once felt like a devastating loss, missing Christmas with her family, losing her job, facing financial uncertainty, now seemed to have a greater purpose. Maybe life wasn't always about what we lose, but about what we gain along the way. I don't know how to thank you," Claire murmured. Aiko stood up and made an elegant bow, a gesture of deep respect. "You don't need to thank me," she said with a calm smile. "Do what you were born to do. I will help you, but your journey, Claire, will always be yours." Before leaving, she looked at her one last time and said, "Remember, kindness is never a waste of time. Sometimes the reward comes in ways we never expect, but it always arrives when we need it most." Claire watched Aiko walk out the door. She remained there alone for a long moment. The storm she had felt in her chest had faded, replaced by a new energy flowing through her. The world now felt within reach. What had seemed like a rainy night, a mistake, a difficult choice, had turned into the greatest opportunity of her life. Now she knew what truly mattered was not what she had lost, but what she was about to gain. And with that realization, she made a decision. She would move forward. But before that, she did something important. She called home, her family in Spain. It was finally time to tell them everything. Months after that rainy night in Seattle, Claire still thought about the word she heard for the first time, without fully understanding the weight it carried. Arigato. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a thank you spoken with difficulty by someone fragile. Today, Claire knew that word meant much more. It represented respect, honor, and a silent bond created the moment she chose to help, even while losing everything that mattered to her. Claire's life had changed profoundly. Her days now began early, surrounded by books, intense classes, and challenges that demanded focus and discipline. The dream of becoming a doctor was no longer distant or unlikely. It was happening, not by luck, but because someone believed in her, the same way she believed in a stranger lying in the rain. Aiko Tanaka was never a constant or intrusive presence. She kept in touch in a discreet, respectful way, as Japanese tradition dictates. Sometimes a short message, other times just silence. But Claire felt she was not walking alone. In one of those messages, Aiko wrote, "In our culture, when someone acts with their heart, destiny bows." Claire kept that sentence as a daily reminder. She also never forgot the hardest period, the unjust dismissal, the contempt, the laughter, the doubts that almost made her believe that being good was a mistake. In time, she learned that the restaurant where she had worked faced problems. The manager was removed. Some coworkers had to deal with the consequences of their own choices, not out of revenge, but as the natural result of their actions. Claire didn't celebrate. She simply moved forward. Whenever she could, she helped other students, volunteered in social projects, and never ignored someone in need, not because she expected a reward, but because she now understood something essential. Goodness is never lost. The following Christmas, Claire finally returned to Spain. She hugged her family as someone who had come back different, more mature, stronger, and more aware of who she was. At the Christmas dinner, when they asked what had changed her life that year, she smiled and answered simply, "A choice." Because in the end, Claire's story wasn't about missing a flight or about a Japanese billionaire. It was about character, about empathy, about who you choose to be when no one is watching. Sometimes life teaches us something that at first feels confusing, and in the end, the reward is exactly what we most wanted to happen in our lives. And you? If you were late, exhausted, with everything to lose, would you have stopped to help someone? Tell me in the comments. Maybe your answer is also the beginning of a great turning point. Share this story so it can reach someone who needs hope today. Sometimes a story arrives at exactly the right moment. And if this story touched you, don't miss the next inspiring story already appearing on your screen. Click to watch.